Good evening. How are you? I'm doing a sit and talk because not so much the weather, but I had to do a couple of things at my office today, and the daylight got away from me. And then when I did get back, and there was still some daylight, the animals must be fed, just like you and I. So, but there are stories today that are worth us talking about and thinking about. And I think among us, you and I, whatever disagreements we may have, our view of what is common sense, what is logical, what is truthful, is the predicate for us having opinions about these things. And the more accurate the information we have and the more thoughtful the analysis, the more likely we are to have good opinions. And I think we try to do that. But not everybody does. And I noticed that the media, and we're talking about normal journalists who brought home the bacon, if you will, this by a vegetarian, brought home the bacon to inform us what's going wrong. And this was done carefully. And these were the heroes and heroines of past confrontations in our government. And where are they now? They exist, but they're not taking charge. And is it the corporate bias to have them tread the water carefully until they know what Trump may do, to object to media, whether it be press or social media or what have you? So are we going to surrender our rights without even thinking to fight about them first? We are right now assessing Biden's presidency. What's wrong with that picture? Biden withdrew a long time ago. He's leaving office, but is he the story, or is talking about him a way to do two things? To gain credibility with trust and to fill the airways with something that won't get media in trouble for actually commenting fairly. It's not enough that we have a house full of nominees from the White House that you wouldn't hire to park your car, and who would willingly and intentionally, as they've told us so, compromise the aspects of government that they're being nominated to head. How can we have that? So why are we investigating and analyzing Biden's career when we have a terrible thing coming in the reign of terror, the reign of error, headed by Trump? Why aren't we drilling down and giving to voters the information that matters in those nominations and in the conduct of government that will occur after the inauguration? Why are we covering the investigation of the not-so-special counsel as to whether or not he lawfully conducted his investigation? He did. There is no issue there. So why is that being raised? It's being raised to fill the room with noise that isn't talking about Trump's shortcomings. In fact, they would hope to have an investigation that would say, yes, see, they misled the nation. Are you going to believe your eyes and ears, the tapes of January the 6th, and reject the indictment against Trump for interfering and attempting to overthrow our government? Well, now, to cap this off, in this reign of error, we had the Chief Justice selling us a bill of goods today, complaining that the rule of law is at risk. Well, who made it at risk? Who put it at risk? He is blind to the fact that in the cause, he has been charging well-established principles of law. He's been changing them, and he has been ignoring stare decisis, which means the precedent. This is how it was done before, like 50 years earlier. We handled the question of a woman's right to be let alone and have dominion over her body in a certain way, and that was thrown out. Why? Because the court under Roberts in 6-3 or 5-4 seeks, by the Republicans on that panel, to achieve ideological and partisan objectives. Those are not what the law is about, not in a judicial branch, not at all. Now, today, in his special report, the end of the year, he complains about violence, intimidation, disinformation, and he's ignoring that the court is the cause of just that, is doing just that. When they talk about these issues, including the overruling of Roe v. Wade, and when they talk about immunity for Trump. And when they talk about the various issues they do, these are throwbacks to approaches to the law of the land that had been long ago rejected as overly capitalistic and not functioning as a concern of the general welfare. So what are we to do? Well, here's the problem. It's having its effect now. Law is what we do instead of violence. When there is no law, then there are no rules. And the court is merely concerned about disrespect for it and violence for the opinions they express. But you see, the Americans do know what's a fair deal. And when you change that deal and you change the law and you ignore it and you're so transparent in your ideology or in your partisan nature, when members of the court are itself conflicted by the favored friends they have that shower upon them funds and opportunities and gifts and so forth, we look askance. When we have people appointed to the bench who have enormous problems, who are chosen themselves ideologically by the Federalist Society, we have problems with the rule of law because it is not law anymore. It is a fiat in the court. It is a choice that is making law, which happens ironically to be one of the things that the Republicans claim they are not about. They are against judges making law. But this is one of these things. Lawyers and judges act as if there's some sort of magical incantation that they make that makes what they do true. But consider the fact, say there are 100 years of decisions on a certain problem, and each one has a tiny difference in it. And that tiny difference didn't exist before that moment in court, or that interpretation of a statute, or some long ago issue or decision in chancery. When that case is dealt with these differences and changes, law is being created for that case. And that case, it will be looked at the next time something happens. That's why when you have these LSAT tests, and they say A is to B as B is to what, C or D. And because if that's true, then A is to D. Sorry, you don't have to go to law school. You know this. So if two things are alike to a third, then they're alike to each other. And I suppose I'm a prisoner of my own interest in math. So I'm sure you understand what I just said. So what do we have going on? Well, when the law is not working and you have people like Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and they're protested in the street, and Roberts in 2020 is upset that there are protests then, just as he is now, just as he would muzzle a First Amendment right. We have no less than Schumer say, "You have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price." Now, some of you may recall or have heard me talk about Sir Thomas More, who, when encouraged to ignore the law and to violate it and so forth, because there was a great issue in which they wanted him to take an oath supporting the Church of Henry VIII, when he was considered, Sir Thomas More, through the skin down into the genetic packaging, a Roman Catholic. And so he wasn't signing, and he said things like, well, silence means acquiescence without actually acquiescing. And when his son-in-law said, I would tear down all the laws in the land to get at the devil. And Sir Thomas More's answer was similar to Schumer's. And his answer was, sure, you're just the person. You would tear down all the laws to get at the devil. But let me remind you that these are man's laws, not God's laws. And when they're gone, how could you stand in the wind that would blow? And Schumer referred to it as a whirlwind. And he was right. The problem in America right now is an institution that is based on us speaking the truth and following a line of development in the law and making clear any shifts and representing in a way, though not the same as a statute is passed, representing in a way the will of the nation is a challenge to wisdom, to discipline, to experience, to a belief in a system that's a democracy. In other words, we don't live in a system in which the ends justify the means. And that's what we have now. And so we have violence, and we'll have more violence because right will find a way, or the perceived right will find a way. And that is what we're concerned about these days, violence. And can we stand in the wind that blows? The Chief Justice is talking about violence to members on the bench, okay? We had this terrible incident in New Orleans. Are we going to examine that the way it should be examined? Why did he do it? Well, we're told he's involved in ISIS, and he ran his car through a community, and he had weapons in addition to the car, and people are dead and injured and hurt, and police officers, I believe 2 of them are down because of the confrontation, and the terrorist, as he's called, is dead. Why did he do this? Well, I don't think it's much of a leap. You know, he's called a coward, but if he were here to talk to us, would he be saying to us that you are participating in the Middle East in the killing of citizens who are innocent? So I'm bringing some of this home to you. Nobody has that writing. Nobody says it's that. But you see, there won't be any discussion of this alternative because you and I are going to be protected from whatever is really going on, whether it's what I said or something less. And this person could be a lone operator, although they're already saying that there were a number of people involved in support of this heinous act. I am against violence. I am against violence against our judges. I'm against violence on behalf of international issues. But you have to have a public discussion about the fact that tribunals have said war crimes are being committed in the Middle East by Hamas and by the Israelis. And it just continues. And Hamas has long been beaten. And I don't know that you can even say they're fighting a defensive action. And, I know this stirs the blood of people. The world is a little bloodthirsty right now. They've lost patience. They've lost the ability to be objective. The lies are weighing against the truth, feeding an emotion to just get this over and do it right. War is never quick. It's not fair. It's unpredictable. It's heinous. The innocent suffer. And some who play the game of power try to extend their influence and power when given this opportunity. And war is both a vacuum and a suction of human values and humanity itself. So when the judge who is on the Supreme Court of the United States speaks almost like a pope, ex cathedra, that is, that he speaks on behalf of the church, and Roberts speaks on behalf of all law in America, he betrays his own oath of office. To comply with the oath, he would be saying, we have to look more carefully at these things. The court has taken these positions and so forth. Breyer, who is one of the most recent justices, associate justice, that I favor well, has explained that if the court loses the trust of the citizens, then the law doesn't have force. I don't know if he said it as strongly as that. I've read several of his books, but I know he believes that there's no way that the court can enforce trust in the law except by how the law is made, announced, and promulgated through the land. And recently, we look more like some arbitrary Judge Roy Bean in the Wild West making it up. And probably Judge Roy Bean, on the average, did better because he spoke more to common sense and the limitations of an almost lawless system. We have a lawful system, and it seems to put us all at risk because we don't know what will happen because the decisions are being made ideologically in a partisan fashion, and at the favor of those contributors who create a conflict, in addition to what I've said, among the justices for the decisions and language they use on the court. So those are a few things I have in my mind. With any luck, tomorrow I'll be walking and talking outside, and I'll talk to you then. All the best. Bye-bye.